This week there's a new 4 pics and 1 word for you. As usual, you get the 4 pictures, you guess the word, and then I tell you if you got it right. That's it. Let's go. So I believe you are focusing on sustainability this term, and we're going to follow that a little bit with our science lessons as well. We're looking at the amount of waste that we produce and the impact that has on the environment and how we can change that. So there are 3 fancy little words that have popped up my whole life: reduce, reuse, and recycle. And I'm pretty sure teachers have now added like a whole bunch more R words to that list, and now there's heaps like repurpose and I don't know, lots. Anyway, we're just going to look at the 3, and we'll begin by looking at what sort of waste bins we have in our house. How do we dispose of our waste? So I'm going to take you to the kitchen now in my house and show you how we do it in our family. So to begin all of this off, I thought it would be a good idea for you to go around the house and see what bins you have in your house. And I asked you to do that last week. I'm going to put up an assignment this week where you can attach photographs and show me. But I'm going to show you what I have in our house. We're about to have another bin on top of all of these because we're going to have the school chickens at our house and they're going to eat different things. So the first one I'm going to show you is under my kitchen sink. I'll just get it. This is our disgusting compost bin, always filled with gross things. I have in there bits of scraps, any food leftovers, tea bags, baking paper from when I bake bread, all of that goes in here. And my husband Danny has a huge number of compost bins in the back garden that he then uses that soil that gets made in our garden. I'm going to talk to you more about that because that's today's activity, is to do with composting, but I'll show you some other bins as well. Alright, this one here is our recycle box. It's the one that's always overflowing because there's huge milk bottles in it. So you probably all know you have a big recycle bin with a yellow lid if you live in Whitehorse, and you know that you can put things like hard plastics in there, tin cans, boxes and paper. So this should have all of your hard bottles and plastics. You can even put other plastic things in there, like a plastic Tupperware container that breaks. That can actually go in there too. It can be any type of hard plastic. Old shampoo bottles. So you should be able to get rid of a heap of waste in here. Yogurt containers. You just have to be careful with some things like I'll show you one. We love Cadbury drinking chocolate, but Cadbury drinking chocolate comes in a container that has cardboard covered in foil and metal, and so it can't actually be recycled because you've got 2 materials mixed together. Really annoying. Anyway, that's that. So this is your normal red recycle bin with the yellow lid on the top. Now this bin here is the one that we most recently introduced, maybe a year, maybe 2 years ago. And I didn't even really know that you could recycle so much of this kind of soft plastic. So in your normal recycle bin, you've got the hard plastics, but you can also recycle soft plastics. Now inside this bin, you can put anything that scrunches in your hand. So any kind of plastic that you can scrunch up. Things like this. Even, I don't know if you know this, but these green bags, when you're finished with them, you can even put them into the soft plastic recycling. Now, the problem with this one is that it doesn't get collected from your house, so you have to make a bit of effort, which is worth it. So you put all of these plastics into one bag, and then at Coles and Woolworths, they both have a big thing out the front called Red Cycle, and it's this big kind of basket thing that you just chuck your soft plastics into, and they get recycled into things like some playground furnitures, plastics for, you might have seen park benches made out of them, and the councils use them around the area. So brilliant way to stop this going into landfill. Now the last bin we have in our house. So if we can't put our scraps and our waste into the compost bin or into the recycle bin or into our soft plastics bin, then we have to put it into here. Now we used to have a giant, really big general waste bin, and we would fill it up regularly because I didn't know about soft plastics and I wasn't being careful enough with separating things. But what we did was we shrunk our bin down to this size, And pretty much every week now, we only have one bag of waste from this bin, which is not that much. It's like one bag for our family for a whole week. Now, there's been times when I've been super careful and I've tried to get that down even lower, and that's going to be one of the challenges that we do this term together, because you're at home, you have all this time in your house where you can help your family with this. So that's going to be one of your challenges. Now, knowing what bins you have in your house is the first step to reducing your waste, both you and your whole family. So if you can get some photographs of the bins that you have, put it on Google Classroom for me this week, and we'll have a little bit of a look at what each other has. Okay, so for today's activity, I need you to gather a few bits of rubbish from your house. I'd like you to get something that comes from leftover eating food. Okay, so I've got some coriander stalks, because I was cutting up coriander last night, and I have a little piece of leftover dry bread. And then I want you to get a piece of plastic of some kind. I don't mind what. I chose Glad Wrap because I used some Glad Wrap this week. I don't usually use it. And it's very thin plastic. So I'm thinking if any plastic is going to break down, surely it's thin Glad Wrap, right? So I've chosen that. And a piece of paper. This was a little bit, the ham from the shops came wrapped up in paper. So this is the paper. So a piece of plastic, some kind of paper or cardboard, and some kind of food scrap. Now, you have to bury this somewhere in your garden. You've got to check with Mum and Dad first, because you don't want them accidentally digging it up. And this patch of garden is going to be where you keep checking every week. So we're going to stake it out with a couple of little markers so that no one digs it up, you know, before we get back to it. And I want you to take a photograph of the things that you're burying, and then we're going to put them under the dirt. All right, let's go now. Okay, so this is a little bit of garden that my husband says I'm allowed to dig up and bury things in. So dig up the dirt a little bit and then get the things that you're going to bury and put them on the surface of the soil. And then I'd like you to cover them with lots of dirt so that they're completely covered. Then it's probably a good idea to put some stakes around it or a little sign so that your parents know not to touch that spot. Take a photo of the waste before you bury it, and then wait until next week when we will dig it up and see how it's decomposing. Welcome back to Is This Funny to a Teenager?
I'm the teenager.
Yeah, this is the teenager, Abby. I showed her a cartoon that I found on the internet, a science-related one. If she thinks it's funny, she's going to pick one of these two. And then you get to see the cartoon. If she does not think it's funny and picks one of those two, then you'll never ever get to see the cartoon. Sad days for you. Okay, you ready, Abby?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Show face. Yeah! You get to see it. Thanks, Dad. Ology, where we talk about different words that end in ology and what they mean. So this week I got messages already from a bunch of kids with different ology words they've made up. Feel free to do this every week and send them to me. This made me laugh, okay? So the first one I got was saxophonology. Clearly someone who plays the saxophone. Then schoolology, playology, driveology, Minecraftology. Pretty important one, I think. This one probably was my favourite one. Be outsideology. And frictionology. Nice one, especially because we learned that last term. Great ideas. Okay, now I'm going to tell you about one that is an actual word and then a couple that I think might be made up, but I found them on the internet. All right, today's word is ornithology. Some of you might have heard of it before. Some of you might straight away know what I'm talking about. But ornis is an old Greek word that means bird. So when you see ornitho on the front of something, it means bird. And so this word ornithology is the study of birds. I'll make sure I've got the words here on the screen so that you can see them. Ornithology. Now, you can also use the word ornitho in other things. So I've heard of a thing called ornithophobia, which is someone who's scared of birds. So there's a teacher in our staff who's really scared of birds, like terrified of birds. You might even know her. And so she has ornithophobia. Didn't even know it was a thing. But then I found two other words, which I've written down in my little notebook, that have to do with birds as well, that I'm pretty sure are made up, but people have started using it like a real word. So the first one is plumology. And plume, in the old Latin word, means feather. So it's the study of feathers. So some scientists study feathers. They study the way they lock together, the way they change in flight, the numbers of feathers birds have on their wings. And someone's called this plumology, but I think it might be made up because I can't find it in actual science dictionaries or anything. And the third one that I thought was pretty funny was penguinology, the study of penguins. I also don't think that's a real science word. Pretty sure someone's just made that up, but I could be wrong. Anyway, this week, try and find some more ology words that you can make up and use in your everyday language, and see if you can fool your parents into it thinking that it's a real word. So I thought I'd take a little video of our back garden and explain how our compost bins work. We have this huge big garden here. Over here are our beehives and a chicken coop which we're building at the moment. We have to build it by Monday because we're getting the chickens. And then over here in this part of our garden are our compost bins. We have lots. I think we have 8. So there's all these and then a couple more over there. And my husband's actually been sieving the compost. Now in this bin here you can see we've actually thrown cardboard and newspaper in there. We do that because we find that it breaks down over time. Now here's one of the compost bins open. When I just opened it I noticed there's just like hundreds of little black beetles everywhere. I don't know if you can see them. They're crawling around everything. That's how things break down. From insects, worms, bacteria, fungi, those things spend all day decomposing or breaking down the things they can. But there are some materials they can't break down, like plastic, polystyrene, and that's why the things that we throw in the compost matter. Now this bin doesn't have beetles in it, but it's got gazillions of tiny little things crawling in there. And you can see that this is actually broken down even a little bit more. This is one of the bins that we've just started filling, so you can see it hasn't broken down a lot yet. But we have these little creatures in our world called decomposers, and basically the whole reason why they're important for our planet is because they break this stuff down. If they couldn't do that, we would basically just be buried in huge piles of everyone's waste. It's kind of gross. So eventually they break it down enough that it becomes really nice, like dirt. They break down all these leaves, all these sticks, all our food scraps into dirt. Now yesterday my husband actually sifted through two of our bins, I think, and we ended up with this beautiful, beautiful dirt. Look at that. It's got a few little bits of sticks and things in it that you can still see. Actually, can you see this? Now clearly that's one of those twisty metal tires. Now that has not broken down. Obviously decomposers can't break that one down. So because of all of that compost that we get from just our food scraps and things on our property, we have enough dirt and soil that is really nutrient rich for this garden that we have, a really big vegetable garden. So we have rows and rows of stuff, heaps of broad beans at the moment. But that extra dirt is so good for your garden. So maybe you and your family would consider putting in a compost bin, and then you can just put that dirt, once it breaks down, you can just put it in your garden. Makes really good soil to grow all these plants.